You know, my man got too familiar, and I ended up having to whip his ass, man, you know, because, you know, he would step across the line. Habitually, he's a habitual line stepper.
Start that over. My bad. I'll cut that.
Start it.
Yeah.
Every time.
Hey, Google, turn off the cave light and turn on the strip lights and the cave lamp.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Habitual Line Steppers, Late to the Party, podcast that never was, to that point, name pending. I am the Rebel Alliance, that's Scrotawilla and Electric Thunder.
What up?
You want me to kick off what we're talking about today? Or do y'all want to?
No, we could just get into conversation, you know? So,
Wait, what are we talking about today?
today we could discuss aliens. What else you did? There was something you mentioned earlier that I was like, oh, that's a pretty dope topic.
Who made?
No, I was talking to Brent before, and he mentioned something, and I was like, oh, let's talk about that on the show, and I forgot what it was.
Me too.
Okay,
Next time.
well, we'll come up with it.
For mystery top.
Yeah. Well, anyway, this week has been a weird week, an eventful week. Something's going on in the universe.
I want it to end so bad.
The week? You're just over this week?
I'm so over this week, and I hope I'm really not coming off as well. I'm irritated as shit at everything this week, so my bad.
Let's hear about it. Get it off your chest.
No. Nah. That will be 2 shows, and no, I'm good.
All right.
I have that thing where, so no matter how my day is, I never want to relive my day. So if you ask me how my day was, I'm pretty much going to say like, it was fine. But it's because in my mind, I would have to retread all of the events that happened for the day. And I don't feel like doing that. Because I was there. I lived it. I don't care.
You don't watch reruns.
I survived, clearly. Spoiler alert, I survived.
That's funny.
I don't rewatch shows. The only show I've ever rewatched is Naruto.
I rewatch
Like
shows.
each new girl,
That shit is too
each
long.
new girlfriend, I reshowed them Naruto because I'm like, this is gonna come up again.
ALT, man. That show gets better every time you watch it. Every time you watch it, it gets better.
I will watch it eventually.
I know. I'm not telling you to watch it. I'm just saying the show gets better every time you watch it. So I've watched that show multiple times because it gets better every time you watch it.
I believe it. You know.
I'm telling you this is a weird week, man. Yo, all right. So
What other weird things happen?
So 2 days ago, our AC shut down. So it's been 90 degrees down here. In the house, it was like 89 degrees. I'm trying to work. I'm sweating bullets. We're trying to sleep at night. We can't sleep. The HVAC guy was supposed to come and, work on the stuff. Couldn't make it that day. Finally got here this morning. And, thank goodness, because this room would at least be 110 degrees with this damn computer. This damn computer, puts out so much heat. In the winters, this computer can heat up a room. So I would have definitely been in a sauna. Then the other night, Roz woke me up and she's like, yo, I see there's a UFO. Yo, I jumped up. I was like, where? I'm thinking there's a UFO on our lawn. But yeah, so she showed me what it was and we saw it. It was kind of like a light all the way in the sky. It was pretty distant and kind of saw it hopping around, in place. But she said before she woke me up, she was wide awake and just looking out the window and she saw it zigzagging. And she was like, no helicopter can move like that. And, we just stood staring at it, just watching it. And then I stepped away, but then she told me it split into 2 and then came back into 1. I was like, damn, this is it's weird.
I don't know how many drones can do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you record it?
She tried to record it, but it's so far, you can't really see the light that well. So
yeah, we mentioned that on Monday, and then we got to talking about UFOs and believing it. So first of all, I definitely believe that there is life in some way, shape, or form in the universe besides Earth. I'm in the camp that I think probably statistically you would imagine that there would be, but I don't think that aliens are visiting Earth and doing things of that nature. Now, did she see a UFO? By definition, she didn't know what it was. So by definition, it was UFO. It was unidentified. But was that alien life form visiting Earth and dancing? I'm gonna be in the no camp. Do you think that they come to Earth and abduct people and stuff like that and do all that stuff?
All the anal stuff? Yeah.
I mean, you lecture.
Yeah, I believe in that. I believe they come down, they anal probe you. They want that little gland, that gland juice. That's what fuels their ships, bro. No. Whether they abduct people, I don't know. There is a possibility. I do believe there's aliens, and I believe there's probably an alien race that could get all over the universe and visit different places. I don't believe we're the top of technology in the whole universe, multiverse, whatever people want to call it.
Well, how would they get here?
I don't know. I had theories as a kid growing up about how we can create something that can levitate and propel, right? So like in space, if you push something, it's gonna propel until it gets stopped by something, because you're in a complete vacuum and there's no gravity. So it's just gonna keep going. And I had this idea, like, I don't know how to explain it, but I envisioned it with magnets. You know how you can push a magnet, like polar ends of a magnet can repel?
Yeah.
So if you have something on a kind of like, is it called like a gyroscope or something?
Railgun.
A railgun?
Yeah. Call a railgun, but that's how
technology
railguns
behind a
work.
railgun.
Yeah, I don't know if it's called a railgun, but that's how railguns work, or supposedly
bullet
would
trains.
work.
Well, I was picturing it in space, right? Like if you can have something and have like the center of it be the actual weight of what gets pushed by the polar ends of the magnets, and you have a bunch of them around, you can like have them swivel and move around and propel it and if they can spin fast enough, they'll kind of propel itself. Almost.
That's essentially how bullet trains work.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
So
Like in Japan, the J rail, that thing moves.
So
fast.
it uses a magnet to propel
Yeah.
itself. Okay.
Yep.
Damn, I didn't know I was a genius on the low, bro. I
You
thought
are,
of
bro.
this
That's
as
why you
a
gotta-
kid.
That's you missed out.
Yeah.
You could invent a magnet lifts. Those trains float.
Yeah, that's how, and wow, that's dope. I'm glad I thought of it.
But the thing is though, like, okay, this is where obviously some assumptions about other species come into play, and literally, using math as the only thing that we know is probably constant everywhere. The Andromeda galaxy is like almost 3, I think like 2.6 million light years away. It's really far away. So that means if you were traveling at the speed of light, which you can't, then it would take 2.5 million years to get here. And that's if there
That's where
is
the closest life is.
that's where the closest galaxy is, right? So that's where the closest so there aren't any other planets roaming around. There are not that many other extra solar I don't know if there's a lot of other extrasolar planets in our galaxy. I'm sure there is, but the nearest galaxy is Andromeda. Now, where is the nearest extrasolar system? I don't know, but it's really far. I mean, I could probably look that up. Where's the nearest extrasolar planetary system?
Well, the next closest star to Earth after our sun is Proxima Centauri, and it's only 4.24 light years away, part of the Alpha Centauri system.
Yeah, wait, man. Andromeda is closer than that, though.
Andromeda galaxy is 2.53 light years away, but I think it's because you're saying a galaxy
Yeah,
versus
4.3. Oh, star. Got it.
Exactly.
So Alpha Centauri Alpha Centauri has his extrasolar system. So it's the star and a bunch of planets. 4.7. That's even further than Andromeda, right?
No, it's not. No.
Andromeda is 2.5 million. Oh, 4.7 light years. Okay, got it. Okay, my bad. Yeah. So 4.7 light years away. That's I've traveled at the speed of light, which we can't do. You can't do it.
But also, who's to say they're traveling at the speed of light? Like, even if they go like speed of sound,
It's slow.
Compared to human life.
how long would it take?
Planes can travel faster than the speed of sound.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. How long would it take to travel? What's the
331 meters per second at a standard temperature and pressure. I don't know how much it is in the vacuum though.
That's our record. Let's say they have technology we figured out some.
But my whole point is it takes so long to get here. If we were to travel to Alpha Centauri, right, and it would take us 4.7 years, let's say 8 or 10 years traveling near sound speeds, right? Because we know we can't hit it. Then we would travel 8 years to get there to pick up some hicks in the middle of Kansas, flash some flashes around and then leave. Like, we wouldn't do that. That's a long trip. And so
you're
48 million years. Yeah.
what you're describing is
it's
you're
super
assuming,
slow.
you're assuming they're traveling the same way that we do. If they have advanced technology to go to another planet, I don't think they would travel the same way that we do. And what I'm saying is, I don't think they would travel linearly, like traverse distance the way that we do. What I think
Wormholes?
they would probably have something that could manipulate the matter around them. Kind of like, I pictured it like them folding a shirt. You have two sleeves on the shirt, but if you fold the shirt together, you can have both ends touch.
Yeah,
So
that's how
I
wormholes
wouldn't.
work.
That's how a wormhole works.
That's the whole principle behind wormholes.
So
That
we
you
don't know
fold
what
space-time.
wormholes are. What if that's their invention?
No, we know what wormholes are. We just don't know how to do it.
Well, they're theoretical right now,
Yeah.
but
See, the thing is, like,
popular theory.
with all the science that we have, and I know nothing. When it comes to science, I'm a complete idiot. All right.
Well, you knew about wormholes without knowing what they are.
So
Not to mention
probably I just need to study.
Without you essentially just came up with electromagnet on your own.
But-
Just loud show me.
I guess it's just creativity, probably. I lost my train of thought. Wormholes. Oh, what I was gonna say is that I can't go against any scientist and say you're wrong. But a lot of times, like when I hear certain sciences and a scientist says, well, this, is a theory that we have, and this theory is solid, E equals MC squared. Like, it's right till it's no longer right, until something new comes up and disproves it, right?
Correct.
So I never look at any science or any law that we have or any physics that we have as factual, because I feel like it can eventually get debunked, whether it's now, 200 years from now, but eventually it can get debunked. And then also, what kind of physics that we have on this planet and within this solar system, we don't know what's beyond, right? And who's to say those physics apply anywhere else? So I don't believe that the same physics that we study here as Homo sapiens and the stuff that we learned as physics applies everywhere else.
I think generally, and I guess as a science communicator, I have to be on point here, right? Or this is my training. I think generally what the difference between the scientific community and the non-scientific community, like the average person or whatever, is that when we say this is a fact or this is a law or whatever, we know that inherently in science, we don't know that anything exists. Let's just say that outright. We don't know that anything exists. What we do is we see things, we make observations, we repeat those observations, make predictions. And if we can consistently predict the outcome over and over again, we label that thing as a fact.
Right.
And until we get other information that says otherwise, that's what we run with, right? One of my problems is that a lot of people say, oh, I have a theory, and they have a theory about this. So, well, maybe, little monsters are pulling us down and it's not gravity. Well, the problem is that people don't know what a theory is. They don't know what a law is. They don't know what a hypothesis is, right? If I see a magic trick and then I don't know how that person made the baseball disappear, and I say guess, and I guess, I think there's my theory is that there's a hole at the bottom. That's not a theory. That's first of all, it's a guess, and at best, it's a hypothesis. So what we call laws, I think gravity is one of the best examples I can find, right? Is that you have the universal law of gravity, and then you have the gravitational theory. A law is essentially, I saw something happen, I did it a bunch of times. This always happens when I do A, always happens when I do B. It doesn't attempt to explain it at all. It just says when I do A, B happens. That's a law. So the law of gravity is that if you take an apple and let it go, it's gonna fall down. That's what the law states, right? Gravitational theory is a way to explain and provides tools on how to understand why we see this phenomenon. So that's the whole universal gravitational constant, G times M1, M2, yada, yada, yada. The gravity between two objects, there's a gravitational pull between two objects and it's proportional to the size of those two objects, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So when someone says like, oh, well, we don't even know why gravity exists. No, we don't, but it does. And we've like modeled a ton of crap. And the theory of gravity is so sound because it's been tested for hundreds, if not thousands of years, and it holds. So what I look at like space and like the space exploration, we know that the world is composed of these 160, so like 40 some elements. I forget how many it is, right? These 100 and some odd elements, okay, on the periodic table. We know that basically there's a really good chance that we found all of them. And the reason we know that is because atoms are structured a certain way. And if you keep on adding protons and weights to atoms, at some point in time, they can't hold anymore. So we've, the last I think 4 or 5 elements on the periodic table, we've made in a lab to like force a new atom. And we did it and then it like dissipated because it can't hold at that subatomic level. There's math that says that it can't do that, right?
It's a
safe bet.
I was going to say, is that what a half-life is?
It's related to half-lives because they decay and it's breaking apart, right? And so with the safe bet to say that these elements on the periodic table, those are the same elements you're going to find everywhere in the universe. Everywhere. It's highly unlikely that there's going to be another atom that can hold consistently in this form that makes completely new stuff we've never seen before. Now we can find stuff we've never seen before, but when we break it down, it's probably going to be made of stuff that we've seen before, right? So I'm just really interested in this stuff. So there's what's called the standard model. This is the standard model that talks about particles of light. This talks about energy. It talks about gravity, the forces, all these things we've arranged in this giant model that kind of explains everything, right? And there's parts that are missing. Like the Higgs boson was the God particle, is a big piece that was missing a while ago, and we kind of filled that in. We haven't really found like gravitons yet and like the subatomic particle that's responsible for gravity. But we do know through like relativity and like Einstein's mass energy equivalence, in order to travel at the speed of light, you would have to not have mass anymore.
Yeah, you would have to turn into particles like light.
Pure energy. Yeah. Exactly. And so we know that we can't do that. And so it's a safe bet to say that if there's any other being that's composed of mass, for them to move at the speed of light without basically destroying themselves and rebuilding themselves is not a likely proposition.
Do you think they understood that when they wrote Star Trek, when they used the teleportation device? Because when they would teleport, they would turn into particles and then be put back together somewhere else. Yeah. No,
they absolutely know about that.
Okay.
That's the whole thing about teleportation. And there's a lot of like science fiction that like kind of makes fun of it. Like when you teleport, you die. And then they put you back together and you think you're you, but you're actually dead. Like it's been made fun of and, poked fun of it a lot and stuff like that over the years. But yeah, you'd probably essentially die.
It's like the right over there.
grandfather's axe or Odysseus' ship to like the extreme, Yeah. Oh, so sorry. The grandfather's axe or Odysseus' ship is a thought experiment. Basically, Odysseus has a ship, and if you replace the bow and then the stern and then all these other pieces of the ship, over time you will have replaced every single ship.
Oh, right.
Or is that ship the same ship? Is that Odysseus' ship? Grandfather's axe. Grandfather's a big old axe. I replace the handle, then I replace this, I replace that. Is it the same axe after some time? There's no original parts. I mean, we as humans do that where we every I think like 7 years or something, no cell in our body is the same as it was before.
Wait,
we still think we're us.
So with grandfather's axe, after you replace everything, is grandfather still alive and does he still own it?
Yeah, grandfather, maybe he's dead. Maybe it's just his axe. It's
okay.
Handed down.
Because if he still owned it, it's still grandfather's axe.
His axe.
Yep. Right. It's not the original, but it's still his axe.
So that's what I mean. It's like grandfather's axe to like the extreme. Like if you disassemble all of your parts and then put them back together, is it the parts that existed at the location? Right. If I teleported myself in Houston and then went to New York, I'm not using the same particles in New York. I'm not. You know what I'm saying? Like they're probably not gonna go with me.
You know what? I'm gonna say yes, it still is, because originally I was gonna say no, it's not the same axe. But I'm going to say yes, it still is, because...
Yeah, wait. Go ahead.
As each part gets replaced, and you once again make this thing whole again, it is quote unquote that object. Like, it's still your grandfather's axe. Yes, you had to replace every other part of it, but it's still the axe that was handed down, an axe that was given to you by your grandfather. It's not the exact axe, but it was your grandfather's axe. You've just restored it like however many times, which is the same thing they do for historic buildings, you're good at the inside, then they remodel the exterior, but it's still like the Empire State Building or whatever building you want to use. Like, oh, this is the building that George Washington, like, blah, blah, blah. But, we had to, like, remodel this part, or, like, this part got burned down, and then we had to rebuild it. But it's still the building that he lived in, even though, like, none of these pieces have seen.
Well, we still think we're us. And like I said, we replace the cells in our bodies completely every, like, 7 or 10 years or something like that. And we're still us. We do count. We're the only thing that counts.
Yeah, I just want to point out how Scrota just opened a bottle of, I don't know what it is, with his teeth. A Heineken with his teeth.
I loosened it with my teeth and then finished it with a Phillips head screwdriver.
Yo, bro, you're out of control using your teeth.
This is my one beer I'm allowed. This is my one beer I'm allowed a week.
Yo.
Wait, hold up. To your point, why'd you loosen it with the teeth, then finish it with the screwdriver, as opposed to loosen it with the screwdriver and then finish it with your teeth?
Because, okay, so I started it with my teeth, and then I realized this is probably a bad idea. But then I started doing it anyway, and I was like, nah, I can do this. And then, like, it slipped, and it, like, kind of cut a little bit of my tooth. And I was like, okay, I could probably think of a smarter way to do this. And then I remember that I was replacing my computer fan behind me.
Yo.
And I probably have tools there. So I turned around, there was a screwdriver. I was like, okay, sweet. And we're in business.
Hey.
And we're in Beer City now.
Back to business.
And that same logic is what's going to get us to Proxima Centauri.
Yep.
I think it's the biggest, like, edging, like, it's the biggest thing that we're just, I listen, I'm an optimist, I'm a futurist. We're not getting there. Here's the only way that we get there. Here's the only way that we and probably other beings, like, shit is so insanely far away from us. It's almost a cruel joke.
Yeah.
That
it would take the Parker Solar Probe 7,000 years to travel a light year.
The fastest thing we've made ever is Voyager. That's the fastest thing it's not Voyager? What is
Parker Solar Probe. That's why I said it. The Parker Solar Probe is the fastest human-made object, reaching speeds around 191 kilometers per second.
Voyager's the furthest.
90,000. Well, Parker Solar Probe is going to the sun, so.
Oh yeah, it's not gonna be for very long. Yeah, Voyager just left our solar system like in the last couple years.
So we're throwing something at the sun, right?
Oh yeah.
Now, like, I sit and think, how stupid could we be, or how smart could we be?
That's awesome.
All right, there's two possibilities. Well, there's a few different possibilities, but like one possibility is, yeah, once it gets close enough, it's just gonna burn up and disintegrate. Another possibility is, like, once it gets into that field, it's a new piece of matter that hasn't been introduced to those gases, into that inferno or whatever is in there. And it might have a different reaction that might be catastrophic towards us.
Nah, it's gonna blow up.
I mean,
like, we know
so
how
small compared to the size of the sun.
Do you know how big the sun is?
Wait, no. But yeah, we know how big it is. But we, as far as we are, we have not taken samples from there. And we're saying, yeah, it's made of this, and that, right? But what if we're wrong? Think about this.
Oh.
If we take baking soda and put it inside of vinegar, it has a reaction. This little speck might have some reaction that we never could have predicted.
Reaction.
It's always, anything can always happen, right? So I don't put a lot of thought into that, right? Because anything could always happen. But like I said, the atoms and elements in the universe are the same. So we can tell what the sun is made out of.
See, that's where I don't agree with. We haven't been there to really collect.
We don't need to be there, right? So you can check the temperature by pointing a laser at something. You can shine a light at something or use a mass spectrometer to figure out like what elements are in this gas or what elements are in this thing based off of the light that it emits. Like, we know how to do that from experience we've done here. So we can figure out that's how we know there's water on certain. How do you think we know that there's water on certain planets? We haven't been there. We call that there's water on ice years before we actually photograph like the ice caps on Mars. You know what I'm saying? So we know what the sun's made out of. Could we be wrong? We could be wrong about everything. We'll be here all day if we say could be wrong, right? But yeah, we have a really good reason to believe that it's made out of this stuff. The thing we're sending is made out of this stuff. And this is how the stuff we make reacts with really hot temperatures. Like it's got to get the closest to the sun, you know?
Right.
So
I have a hard time believing the same way people have a hard time believing aliens can make it all the way over here. I have a hard time believing that Earth science understands something on another planet that's billions of miles away.
That's why we keep trying to go.
we exactly, we don't understand it fully. There's certain things that we can say about this other planet that we have really good science and evidence to believe. So do you think when they say, oh, this planet is X, Y, humans just making shit up, but we just don't know what the fuck we're talking about?
I think there's some science behind it that we think we understand, but there's so many things and this is just my belief. I have no facts to back it up. It's just a belief, right? But just my belief is I think there's so many things in between us and that destination where we're missing a few pieces. And
How many pieces?
That it could be infinite for all we know. Right? We can't, it's not like, see here, we can pick something up and break it down and say it is made of this. Over there, we're speculating off of what we see from light.
But we can tell so much from light. We can tell so much from light. And we know that we're accurate because we could tell that about stuff here and then verify it. So we don't have the whole picture. No, right? But here's the thing. If we look at a planet that's distant, and we make certain predictions about that planet, okay? And then we can teleport to that planet and figure out if those predictions are right or wrong. What do you think the accuracy about the predictions we made, what percentage do you think it's going to be? We're pulling these numbers out of our ass, but like I want to know to what level of skepticism do you have? If we made certain predictions about a planet based off of our observations here from Earth, and we get there, to what percentage do you think those predictions will be accurate?
I can't even give you a percentage because it's, pull a percentage.
Once upon a time.
Yeah,
I would say we're probably half right, if that.
So the predictions we're able to make, we'd probably be at best half correct.
Yeah, that's
about what we're able to predict. Not saying let's predict everything about the planet and then we'll get half of it right. It's like I only know this much about the planet. There's a little small piece based on our science that's pretty accurate.
Yeah,
that small piece is saying you'd expect us to only be half right.
Right. Yeah. That's what I would say. I mean, I have no facts to back it up. So anybody that's listening, just know that I have no facts. It's just what I believe. The same way people believe in ghosts and UFOs and other weird things. I just don't think that we have it all. It's just too far away for us to actually know and understand fully, you know? And I find it fascinating, you know, that we can make these predictions off of light. And some people even understand the light so much that, you know, they could break it down by light wave and say, hey, this is a long light wave that we cannot see with the human eye, but this light wave traveled this distance within this time. So this means that this planet is 500 billion light years away. I find that interesting. Yeah, I just put together some mumbo jumbo, but but you know, like I understand that like they measure light distance by the size of the wave, right? So the longer the wave, the further the planet is, right?
Not exactly.
Or the light source.
They have multiple sources that actually perceive that light, multiple sensors, and so they triangulate the distance based on how long it takes to get to each thing.
And again, people
base it off of.
But don't take. I am not a scientist in no way. I have never studied this stuff. It's just. And I know the scientists are going to come at me like, look at this idiot. He never studied science. How is he going to tell us? The scientists, they're very protective about their shit. Like from podcasts I've listened to, I'm like, damn, these guys go in.
So have you ever heard of the large alien theory?
No, I haven't. What is it?
Brent, have you?
I've heard.
So it's not just like science, but also stats can tell us a lot about the world too. I don't want to butcher this wrong, but I got a little bit of notes on this. So basically what it says is that if we go to another planet and we find other intelligent creatures like our counterparts, they're probably going to be giants and we're probably going to be very, very small. And statistics says that that's more than likely the case. It says that life forms in the universe follow size distributions, and the smallest, most abundant life forms are usually the smallest, right? But if we go to another planet, because we are more than likely an outlier statistically, right? So the distribution of our large planet with small microbes and big like major species, it says that essentially we're going to see a small planet with giants on it as opposed to a big planet with like normal sized people. Statistically, other planets that are comparable to Earth, that have life forms comparable to Earth, statistically will have giants there living on a smaller piece of land. So we've got to find a smaller Earth with people that are like 3 times as big as us.
Have you ever seen the
I
scale?
would expect the opposite. A smaller Earth with even smaller creatures on it.
Okay, so let me read this real quick. The large alien theory is based on group statistics suggests that in a universe as vast as ours with billions of galaxies and trillions of planets, the diversities of life forms could follow a statistical distribution where most life forms are small like microbes, but a small percentage could be extraordinarily large. This idea is rooted in the concept of extreme outliers and large data sets. If exist on a massive scale, such as the universe, some planets may have environmental conditions like low gravity, abundant resources, unique biological structures that allow the evolution of massive organisms. These large aliens would represent the tail end of the size distribution curve, making them rare but statistically plausible in our universe with so many opportunities for life to arise.
Wookiees. Yay. So they said, hey, there might be Wookiees. I'm with it.
Wookiees. Yeah, Wookiees. Wookiees.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're working Wookiees.
But to that point, like once I keep saying once upon a time because I'm trying to bring it up. Once upon a time, we were confident that the Earth was flat. There's some folks out there that say the Earth is apparently before Columbus sailed.
Everybody knew the Earth was round. Everybody knew the Earth was round around that time, dude.
Really?
Yes, it was common knowledge. Why is there so many stories that Christopher Columbus is a hero? Everybody in Columbus days knew. Columbus knew that the Earth was round. Columbus knew that the Earth was round.
They got people that think the Earth is flat. But did everybody know? Anyway,
Columbus.
Same thing. Everybody knew you could not go to space. Once upon a time, everybody was like, that's crazy.
It's still crazy.
So, I mean,
It's insanity.
what's a SpaceX rocket blew up the other day? So, hey, it's going to be a long time before you catch me. I'm not even trying to get on planes right now. I'm like, hey, get y'all maintenance together.
Remember I told you about if I go, it got to be cool. If I leave, it got to be cool. Challenger was pretty dope, bro. Challenger was pretty dope.
Oh, man. We want to take a short break
Tragic.
and our condolences to the families that were affected by the Challenger.
Of course, but like
There.
it was, if you got to go, man, it's kind of badass.
Space Cowboy. So yeah, there's so much space out there that we have such a large data set potentially play with that we can have things like this large alien theory where it's like in this massive of a data set, there's a possibility for the outliers and not even to treat them like, oh, that could never happen. Like, that's crazy. Like, data set is so big, it might be real. So,
Supposedly, we're the statistical outliers.
of course we are. I mean, in the vastness of space, like us being life on a planet, yes, we're already an outlier. Look at our own galaxy. We're the only planet. That said, with each of these planets, with each of these stars, there could be a planet, and on each of those planets, there could be some form of life. Yes, I agree that most of them would probably be like microbes or whatever, primordial soup or blah, blah, blah. But I think it's arrogant for us to believe that none of these other life forms have advanced technology beyond what we have.
Who thinks that?
A lot of people.
Somebody might. And to that point, there are people who believe the pyramids are from aliens. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if like somebody was like, "Oh, turns out, there were aliens, and like this group of people who were like first on the planet were like descendants of like that alien." If you found the science to back it up, I'd be like, okay, cool. That explains why like these folks don't look like these folks.
You're talking about the Anunnaki.
But here's the problem with that, right? Here's my problem with that, right?
Yes.
I think there's a difference between saying if sufficient evidence is brought up, then I'm willing to change my opinion, which I think most actual scientists are on board with that. That's the whole reason we're trying to find something. But there's a difference between doing that and then saying, who knows that, listen, this guy might be right. There's a difference between those two things because one lends credibility to the actual scientific process, and the other gives credibility to just making shit up based off of little to no evidence, right? And what happens is this is how you have pseudoscientists getting more popular, and this is how you have people like this anti-science movement growing more steam, is because instead of people say, no, that's bullshit, because you don't have any good reason to believe that. Instead of people saying that, people say, you know what? I mean, what's the harm in him saying that? Who knows? This whole who knows what this is? I'm just asking questions. That is irresponsible, in my opinion. It's just very irresponsible.
Favorite ways to debate.
Well, no, I mean, you have to point that out because I don't know exactly what you're talking about. But like a UFO is a UFO. That doesn't mean. So why is it? Oh, that's a UFO. Aliens. As opposed to that could be a number of things, and I literally don't know what that is. When we were in school, we have those mathematical comparisons. You know, they showed you two things, A and B. A is bigger than B. B is bigger than A. The C was the two items are equal, and then D was I don't have enough information to solve this problem. And I think what happens is I think the scientific community is perfectly fine with saying I don't know, but people, because we're pattern matching machines, we want to solve a problem. And so even if we have no evidence, no backing, no basis, we say, oh, that's what that is. And then we run with that. And when someone says, oh, well, you don't know if he's wrong, now all of a sudden that thing has gained credibility.
Is that credibility, though? That's
absolutely.
Like
Absolutely.
I don't know. At that point, hold on. There's people who will eat the food that's not FDA approved. That said, there's a lot of people that is like, I ain't touching that. That's not FDA approved. So to say that it gains credibility just because somebody eats it is not the same as this has like scientific rigor behind it.
It does gain credibility if somebody eats it. It does.
That's not. There's a lot of people that eat a lot of things. If someone eat it,
if someone was listen, if you're not, but we're not talking about you. You can't look at this from you. You got to look at this from a random person who's on the fence, middle of the road. Maybe not too educated on FDA approvals versus non-FDA approvals. And there's some food that is sus as hell. And then one person's like, FDA don't know what they're talking about. And they eat that food and they don't die immediately. That person who's in the middle is going to eat that food because, they got like, my friend said FDA is nonsense and he eats that food all the time and it's fine. Absolutely, it gives them credibility.
Red berries, yep. I'm sure whoever first had to go out there and eat the red berries when the rest of us were like, hey, man, I don't know those berries. That person didn't die right away. So everybody else started eating the red berries. But then a week later, it was like, wait.
You will see that person a week later. You know what I'm saying? And being anti-establishment and anti-whatever is so trendy now that people just like attach on to just any nonsense because, well, scientists or Fauci's just, it boggles my mind how anti-intellectualism and anti-scientific we've gotten in the last 15 years or so.
I don't know if it's anti-science so much of as it's like just blatant confidence in unproven things.
It's anti-science.
In the building I used to live in, they're apparently doing some type of maintenance because they found asbestos somewhere. And I'm just thinking about, man,
California, basically everything that was built in California has asbestos. Like, hey, if you're pregnant, don't drill in these walls, bro.
Yo, for real. And that's one thing I learned about when we were first looking for a house is they were like, oh, you see that type of siding? Anytime you see that, that's asbestos.
Great building material. Great building material.
I mean, it's fine on the outside of your house. Just, don't bang on it too hard.
That wall you were trying to knock down?
Don't knock that wall down.
Maybe not.
So to that point, though, there's so much science that we still have to, your point, test and verify. Because as you said, a lot of these laws are just things where it's like, look, every time I've tested this, I've gotten this same result.
All the laws
I'm going to call that a lot. Yeah, I have failed to disprove this law so far. I've failed to disprove this so far. So there is, however, those moments where up until XYZ, we were confident, like every now and then I have to talk about the planets and then I have to pour something out for Pluto because it's like, man,
But all you're doing is describing science, though. There's nothing wrong with it.
There's not.
But people use that argument you're making as an indictment of what's wrong with science. Oh, we were so right about this, and now look at it all of a sudden it's wrong. It's like, yeah, it's not a problem.
Yeah, but to that point, how much was stuff tested? And I'm sure
A
there's
lot, bro.
I'm sure there's stuff that was tested a lot until we got to the point where it was like, oh snap, we're wrong.
But what's the point of saying that?
Is there something wrong with caution? For instance,
But what's the
a
point
lot
of
of people
saying
who
that?
don't believe it, like a lot of people who don't believe in vaccines don't understand how much tests go through and like the scientific process, controls versus like tests. They don't understand the volume of testing that goes on
I don't think that's a good argument. I mean, especially
before it even gets to you. So if I told you like, hey, I've tried this 20,000 times, and out of the 20,000 times, a good 18,000 times, this was the result, right? 2,000 times it wasn't, but there was, some variables that didn't go blah, 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 whatever. But
That's a bad stat.
hey, but 18,000 times, I mean,
That's a bad stat.
that is bad.
That's a really bad stat.
All right, so let me find what 90% of 20,000 is.
What is it, 18, bro? That's like a 5% error rate, bro. It's horrible.
I know. Even still,
That's terrible.
all right. Hold on. Let me get it.
We're talking about a defect rate of like a fly swatter. Okay, no big deal.
In order for it to reach 99.6%, it'd have to be 19,900. That means out of 20,000 times, only 80 times it did not have the result.
That sounds better,
right? Okay, cool. But people act like, oh man, like this thing, I mean, I know it got approved, but it was like 51%. It's like, no, like it was way more than that.
We might be getting a little further off. My point is saying, what's the point of making that point that you said? Well, sometimes science is wrong. You have to redo science. And my point is that all you're doing is explaining science. But what's the point of saying that if that is in the definition of the thing?
I think it's that is part of science. And I think that that's something people don't realize is that science is always trying to prove. You don't trust it. Science doesn't trust it.
Science don't trust
Science is always trying. Exactly. Science is always trying to disprove. People make entire careers disprove.
That's how theories get made theories, because people try to disprove it and they can't.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think science doesn't do enough. Science needs better marketing. The people,
all nerds do,
explain to them like, right. But that's what I'm saying. Science needs better marketing to explain to other people like, yo, as much as you don't trust this, we don't trust this. Only we have labs where we can test our distrust of this. And we weren't able to disprove it.
I think that's where science.
That doesn't mean we're doing stop trying.
I think that's where science communicators come in. Because doctors are pretty bad at explaining doctor stuff. Engineers are horrible at explaining engineering things. And computer science are bad on
how to make a commercial.
You know
If Google don't learn how to make a commercial, because Apple will spend a whole commercial on one feature of the phone, and they got all these people thinking this phone is amazing. Meanwhile, Google doesn't really make phone commercials though. No, they don't. Like,
you talking Samsung?
Samsung is doing the best for them because, like, if it was up to Google in and of itself, Google's like, I mean, we just did it, so whatever.
Google don't care.
Google don't care. But that's my
Google
point.
don't care.
Just like
they Google.
Google needs better marketing to say like, hey, I'm sorry, we realized we made a commercial, but we threw like 20 features at y'all, and that was too much. Here's one commercial, one feature. Here's something that you haven't seen before.
What Google commercial are you speaking about? Because the Pixel commercials I've seen talk about like here's what this camera here's what this camera can do.
I feel like that's all phone commercials though. All they talk about is that
like
camera.
Apple.
Well, the latest one is the Apple AI OS, right?
That's bullshit. So what the fuck does that even mean?
But before that, it was all cameras. Everybody just talks about how great their camera is.
Yeah, but it's because people finally realize like, oh, the human eye can't see past this many megapixels anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
96K.
Yo, so have you seen like the shots of people taking pictures of the moon with Samsung phones, and the AI is creating an image for them where it actually shows like craters of the moon, and the moon's like crystal clear, but it's not a real image of the moon. It's just AI generated.
Awesome. Nope, haven't seen it. The little man in a chair on the moon.
That,
But the point was, science needs better marketing.
So, Legend, what can we do to get that number raised as a scientific? What can the scientific community get that number of trust raised for you as far as like just how much like there's so much work is done in order to be confident that this is the way it is. And when we say things like there's something called a confidence interval, like listen, I know I may be wrong. Here's the confidence interval that I can say this because there's a margin of error, right?
I'll tell you.
Not to mention we put out entire studies.
No, the real way that can change is if the scientific community can get a hold of TikTok and Instagram and all social media platforms and change culture the same way they do in other countries where they put up, scholastics instead of entertainers. I think that's the only way that it can really happen. And I might sound like, I don't know if I sound like I'm joking as I say a lot of stupid shit fucking around, but
No.
I really think that's the real way to do it. We idolize stupid shit. We idolize entertainers. Yeah, it's crazy.
So do you know what science what science communicators are? This is actually one of the things that I am actually trying to do with my life. And this is why podcasts like this help me, because it helps me try to communicate these scientific informations to not just yourself, but anybody listening, really. And the challenge is me to make sure I'm being more accurate in what I'm saying. A science communicator is a person who says, listen, I understand and have a grasp of the science behind this stuff. I know a little bit about a lot of different scientific, principles, even though like my main thing is computational theory, right? But I understand enough about the scientific process and the different aspects that I can communicate these things in a way that people can understand it. So for number one, I'm hoping I'm doing that effectively. But number two, that's what a lot of science communicators are doing. So people are leaving academia saying, listen, I'm going to go and be a YouTube influencer. I'm going to be like Bill Nye the Science Guy. You have Neil deGrasse Tyson. That's what he does. He's the face of science, Dr. Seema Hassan, shout out to, or whatever her name is. That's what these people are doing. They're trying to gain trust back to from the masses that have kind of abandoned it and make science accessible for people. So, one of the things I do, shameless plug, is I perform at schools where I teach people and children, very complicated scientific concepts in a fun way and expose them that, hey, science is actually really cool. I make things explode, make things pop, and relate those to like different things in their lives and stuff. So I think the internet, and you're a TikTok guy, you're a Reels guy. There's a lot of people that do this. I think there's a guy named Mini Minuteman. He's an archaeologist, and he spends a lot of his time debunking pseudo archaeology. He's hilarious. You should go check him out. And I think that is right up your alley with as far as like the content that he produces. And like the weird, the weird, he found these skulls in the ocean. Are they from giants kind of thing? Like he talks about, not only debunks those things, but also lets you know the actual science and history behind those things. And when he doesn't know something, he's like, oh no, Right. So I think science communicators have a really, really important role and function in our society, probably now more than ever. So again, I think you're right. I think you're right on the nose with what we need.
And it's starting.
It's funny enough, too, in regards to that, right? Our 8-year-old daughter talks about, she gets upset when she comes from school and she says that all these kids, all they talk about is brain rot. Like these YouTube videos full of brain rot. And that's all they talk about all day. And she gets so annoyed by it, and that's like a good example of,
shout out to her.
Yeah, she's
it.
8 years old and she's like, what is this? What are they talking about? And stupid videos that are scripted, like staged pranks, like, but then you see something about science and like people tend to just skip it, or, well, not really. No, I'm talking crap, because there are some good science reels that I see that has like, 100,000 views and likes and stuff like that.
Are they scientific?
But are they
scientific?
Yeah, they are.
Did you know that the Earth is actually 1,000 pounds made of cheese?
So I started following a guy, right, that was giving like fake facts, but sounding very serious. And I didn't notice it until after watching 2 of his reels. And I'm like, this mofo's full of shit. It's like satire, but at first I thought he was giving real facts, and that's dangerous in today's time, man. Because like people could just see that, not get that he's doing satire, and just go out.
He was doing satire?
Yeah, it was satire.
Are you sure?
But it took 2 reels for me to understand it.
Bro,
so I was like,
there's
shit.
There's a guy named Graham Hancock, and there's another guy, his name is like a black dude named Billy something. These are the most, they sound pretty serious, but like people with like just enough science literacy will be like, oh, this guy's full of shit. They just say anything, bro. And it's just like Graham Hancock is like, oh, I don't know. Like, so a lot of what he does is like the way that a lot of con men work, right? Is that they do engage in a lot of like saying a lot of platitude shit, like stuff that like is just very agreeable. Listen, science is not a perfect thing. The education system doesn't teach you everything you need to know. Okay, no one's gonna argue with that. But then they kind of deviate into this, like they get you saying, okay. And then they say, yeah, but here's what they don't teach you in school. I mean, they don't teach a lot of stuff. They literally can't teach you everything in school, right? And then because they didn't teach this to you in school and you've never heard this before, it's because they don't want you to know that. It's because they don't want you to know these things. And you're like, you know what? F them, whoever them is. But it's like, no, the reason they teach you this in school is not because the curriculum just didn't have room for it. It's because it's bullshit. And now you're like,
want you to know that
they don't want you to know that because it's nonsense. This guy was talking about like, these mass extinction events. He's like, here's this mass extinction that was never talked about in school. It's like, yeah, because they talk about like the big ones. I'm talking about there's so many of them. And, you just got to be careful. I think everybody needs like that 1 or 2 scientific friends or people that they can just pass stuff by, because the internet, and it's getting harder and harder, especially with this AI stuff, to figure out what's real and what's not.
It's kind of like AI though. Like people just hearing things and it's like, you know what? I don't believe in either anymore.
Yeah. Con men are I mean, I think con men are pretty easy to find, but I mean, I've been fooled a couple of times. One of the people who I'm really close to until just recently thought Elon Musk was a genius. So,
I think a lot of people believe that.
But a lot of people don't know how to. The most important thing you can learn in school is the scientific method. Like I say this over and over again because it's just so true. That's the most important thing you can learn.
Okay. If that's the most important thing to learn, how quick is it to learn? Like, could you break this down within 2 minutes for us? Or even a minute?
This is a great challenge on game. So the scientific method is a way to understand unknown information around us, essentially. It's a way to teach critical thinking using a process that is step by step, and step by step will kind of land you on a conclusion. So you make an observation. Observations are like the most basic thing we can do. I saw something that happens. I raised an eyebrow, said, that's interesting. And I made that observation over and over again. I'm going to make a prediction on why the thing I'm seeing is the way that it's seeing. I'm making this prediction based off of some of the information I've had in the past and what I think right now. So it's an educated guess. We call this a hypothesis. Make an observation, make a hypothesis. Now, it's not enough to stop right there. Just because you think that that's the way it works doesn't mean that that's true. I need to formulate a test that can definitively say, is my hypothesis correct or not? I'm not necessarily trying to prove the observation I made. I'm trying to test out the hypothesis to see if my hypothesis is legit or if it's bullshit. So what I do is I construct an experiment, and this experiment has to be constructed in a certain way that it makes sure that we yield a result. Not the result we want. We wanted to make sure we yield a result. So we have to design this experiment to make sure that certain things are kept the same, and we're only changing exactly one thing. We call this a response variable, a manipulative variable, right? And what that variable we're manipulating, it stands in opposition to things that we keep the same as a control. So let's say, I want to test which, baking soda dissolves faster, and I get 3 brands. Well, I use the same water, I use the same size, use the same amount of baking soda, but the only thing I'm changing is baking soda. I repeat this test a certain number of times that are statistically, relevant. And then I look at the results, and based off those results, I compare those results to my hypothesis, and I say, was my hypothesis correct? Was it wrong? Or is the test bad? Because that's the thing that people don't do a lot. Like, the test might be bad, or it might be a great test, but I just haven't tested it enough. It's inconclusive. So the ability for us to run, and then we make conclusions based off of it. And when you make those conclusions, you figure out how we can apply and how we can extend this research, right? Now, this sounds really scientific and sounds like this is like all academic, but we do this all the time in our regular lives, right? It's my kids were like, "Hey, is the tooth fairy real?" I was like, "Well, how? I don't know. How would you prove that?" And they're like, "I don't know." And they started to come up with different ways to kind of test it out to kind of figure if this is real or not. So we do this all the time, but it basically trains you to have a way to think critically, how not to necessarily just trust the first thing you believe in. You can have confidence that that's correct, but it trains you to say, just because I think this is right does not mean it's right. I have to do more work.
That tells me that we live in a
When you say we do
society.
this every day, the thing about like, I'm about to burn my mouth. Is this food too hot? Well, test. It's a very rudimentary test.
That's
Very
part of it.
rudimentary version.
And I'll get to what I have to say though. What'd you say?
So with everything that you just explained, we basically live in a society where everybody just hypothesizes everything
And runs
and
with it.
stops right there. That's it.
Just
Yep.
stops. They don't want to do the work.
Yep.
Yeah. Listen,
Nope.
to what Brent said earlier, he said that when you say, "Man, this looks hot," I'm gonna lick it. You know it's hot. Listen, I don't get mad at my kids when they do stupid stuff because they were testing it. Sometimes I'll get mad, but as if there is intelligent design in what they're doing, you got to remember. Sometimes I got to remember. Listen, he's 7, he's 9. I remember how I was. Like I remember one of my sons was young and he saw this it was like this marker, but it didn't look like a marker. And I said, "Hey man, don't use that because it's gonna get marker everywhere." And he's like, "This is a marker?" I said, "Yeah." And he opens it. I'm like, "Don't use that." And he looks at the wall and I'm like, "Dude, don't." And he's like, and he goes, he just sighs and he just starts writing. And he got in trouble. That sigh was like, "Dude, I know I'm gonna get in trouble. I know I'm not supposed to do this. I just gotta see." And he got in trouble, but I respect that. Like he made a decision. Like, listen, I get it. I'm being told this, but I'm gonna do a little bit more work, and I'm probably gonna get in trouble for it. But I'll know, and that's what's up.
That's how my mom raised me. She wouldn't tell me I couldn't do it, but she would tell me what the outcome would be if I did it.
Yep.
So she's like, "I'm gonna tell you not to do this, but if you do it."
And there's benefit of repeating experiments that people have already done before. One of my favorite quotes is, "What do you call," like kids do this all the time because kids have what's called wonder, and wonder is what's missing in the world. Like, what do you call a child who never lost their wonder? You call that person a scientist. Like, that's what they're called. You know what I'm saying?
I was gonna come up with something like autistic.
I mean,
And welcome to the last episode of.
Hey, so we had a friend who.
That's the reason why autistic people are dope at stuff, dude.
Yeah,
MIT
autistic people are
supposedly, like,
genius,
has a
man.
they have a high level of folks on the spectrum at MIT. And apparently it's because they excel in math and science.
We need to listen to people on the spectrum more, man.
And they have
They know something we don't know, bro.
They can tap into like hyper focus like no other. There was a dude I knew.
Goodness.
His social skills,
They
but this guy would pick up the newspaper in the morning. He'll read the whole sports section. And he'll be able to tell you every stat of every game from memory. And we would do this all the time with him because we found it so much fun, like going through the newspaper. All right, tell us what the Mets did yesterday. And he'll tell us what the pitcher did, how much they scored, what their batting percentages were. We were like, yo, how do you retain all this information? Like, he did not miss. It was amazing.
they don't have to waste brain space dealing with the other BS. They cut right through all of that, get to the point, and can retain information that we can't because we're trying to remember falsities of how to be a normal person, quote unquote.
Yeah. So it makes you think: is it like a balance? You know.
Yeah, but if it was create a pay, you know how you can do create a player.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
You're starting yeah. You back yet? Anytime his cameras. Do you believe in aliens?
Yeah, there it is.
Or the other question: if we made predictions about another planet and then teleported, to what degree of confidence do you think those predictions would be accurate?
That you can ask that question
Best
because I
question.
can't repeat that.
That's my question. What would it take for you to believe in science?
And what?
That's a good one.
What would it take for you to believe in science?
In science?
Yeah, in science.
Can you be more specific? That's a really broad
Oh my
question.
gosh, yeah, in the scientific method, in scientific rigor, like
Give a specific topic.
we have entire people performing like well thought out, well designed, heavily tested experiments, and folks are still like, nah, I don't believe it.
No, I'm good.
It's like what? First off, they didn't believe it either. They used to agree with you.
They didn't agree with you. They just didn't have a stance.
You know what? That's how, I want to see that science communicator be like, you know what? Hey, you don't believe? Hey, let's take this outside. Let's take this to the lab then. I bet you won't take it to the lab. Hey, I bet you won't make a hypothesis.
One of my favorite things to tell people like that is when they say something and they make a claim and they're pretty on it, right? And then I say something that I can back up that flies in the face of it. And I present some of that evidence, right? People usually want to just go on to the next thing they have to say. I always like, oh, wait, no, let's stop there, okay? Do you want to address what I said? Because it's harder to address something that flies in the face of your beliefs and much easier to just move on. So I like slowing the conversation down or saying, we'll keep it linear. Or at the beginning of the conversation, I'll say, hey, I hate having these conversations with people because what happens is they're all over the place. They can't stay on one topic at a time and they're unable to have linear conversations. I know that you're different though. I know that you can stay on one thing at a time. And that's why I'm going to have this conversation with you and then we proceed.
Listen, I just want you to know, it will not be the last time you use create a player as a hypothesis of how people work.
All right. Let's get back to that.
The creative player. Oh, we have creative player theories.
Oh, yeah.
Tested
Well-
theories.
Well, when you walked away, we were discussing how there was an autistic person that I knew that he can memorize all the sports stats in the newspaper.
I heard that.
Okay. And then Rebel mentioned it's kind of like a creator player. So it's kind of like he dumped all his memory retention into that and left the social parts out, Not that he did it, but, it's when he was created.
God did it.
So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. You only get 100 points, so he put the 20 points out of social stuff from like math, science, and like memory retention.
So for the listeners that are following, if you were given 100 points or even 10 points to build your own character from start at the beginning of your life, where would you distribute your points to?
The bulk share.
Yeah. Let us know in the comments. I want to see what's on people's mind and what characteristics they find valuable. And that could be physical. That could be intellectual.
Only mental, or are we including physical?
Yeah,
I would say penis size.
Yeah, anything you want.
But I got a lot of points there, and it's not that cracked up.
Have fun and build your character. Penis points 8. I only got 2 more points.
Like
ball size.
People who have money.
Damn, he's just digging balls. Oh man,
you're like, I could lose some.
And y'all, please like and subscribe.
Yeah. Do that.
Please like and subscribe, y'all.
So real quick, if if anybody's interested in some of the stuff that was talked about right here, another really interesting thing to look up or Google or whatever is a theory called quantum immortality. If you like kind of this weird like physics and like math thought process when it comes to like immortality and time and space stuff, that might be right up your alley. Quantum immortality. Check it out.
I like the sound of that. Does that have to do with anything like reincarnation?
Yes, it's crazy.
Oh, I need to read that. Yeah, that sounds interesting.
Insanity. It's not what you think it is. I guarantee you.
All right. So do you guys have any questions for the listeners so we could close out?
Why haven't you followed us on Spotify yet? What's up with that?
How many friends can you share this with? And by all means, feel free to take stuff that we've said and then present it as if you just knew this already.
Unless it's inaccurate, then don't do that at all.
Yeah, definitely don't take anything I say.
No. I welcome fact checking. Please fact check. If there's anything we said that was inaccurate, correct us so we can do better, and then we'll bring it back.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, don't take anything I say. I play too much.
Labman63 said we were completely wrong about it. He gave us some studies, or he just found a quick IG video of a science communicator who said it.
If you shoot yourself in the face, don't do it. You almost have 100% guaranteed chance of living through it. Don't do it.
I know somebody
That's for
that's
our
got.
haters.
That's quantum mortality. It's crazy. You should look it up.
Oh shit!
Don't do it.
Oh my
Don't
God.
do it. Don't
Test
do
it.
it. Matter of fact,
That's
just
right.
cut that part out.
Yeah, I'm gonna cut it out.
Just leave the quantum immortality little plug in and just call it a day, man. So we also have other media platforms. Myself and Electric Sweet stream on Twitch at least once a week. My Twitch channel is Eze Ajuju, EZEAJUJU on Twitch. Electric is Electric Thunder. You can see that in the info, the doobly-doo, and we'll leave all our informations in the doobly-doo. Yeah.
And also, let us know in the comments. Like, do you guys believe in aliens, or do you believe that we've been contacted by them? And also, if any of you have been contacted by any aliens, or you encountered anything like any extraterrestrial encounter, and share your experience. I'd love to read it personally. I know Scrotawola does not believe in it at all. I do. And I would love to read your story. Even if you're trolling, just throw it out there. I will enjoy the story anyway. I'll try to make Scrota a believer. Scrota's sitting there looking at me like I will never believe.
Repo? We doing repo?
Yeah, I'm down for some repo tonight. All right. Bring us out.
Well, this has been the Habitual Line Steppers podcast, Late to the Party, podcast that never was, Only Labs, name pending. I am the Rebel Alliance.
Scrotawola!
And I'm Electric Thunder. Thank y'all for listening.
Listen.
And we are out.
Can't even sign off correct.
You want to try it one more time? That almost worked. It was just too long of a silence.
You could cut out the silence. That's the whole point.
I know. I got anxious.
Someone editing.
Chocolate brain.
Usando